Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen. This is our Stage 18 Vuelta Espana recap and our Stage 3 recap of the Ceratizit Madrid Challenge by La Vuelta, the women's stage race. Both the last stages in each of those respective races and the last major racing, World Tour racing this year in 2020. So that being said, I'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsor, L'Ecole, throughout the Giro and the Vuelta. They've made these podcasts possible with Benji and I. Benji, this isn't his full-time gig. I'm trying to make this my full-time gig, and L'Ecole have gone a long way in supporting us doing that. If you don't know what L'Ecole do, they produce performance road cycling apparel. They provide the kit to Bahrain McLaren in the pro peloton, while Poles was a nice 6th on GC actually in this Vuelta, kind of flew under the radar. If you want to check out their kit, it's at www.lecole.cc, and I'd encourage you to go and check it out. And I also got one more thing to ask before I get into this stage profile. Might be a big ask, but go and give us a review or a rating on the Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so already. This stage tonight is the back end of, I think, 50 days straight where I haven't gone to bed before 5:30 a.m., which is, I feel really bad. I haven't gone to bed. I haven't got more than 5 hours sleep in maybe 3 months, not exaggerating. And the last 50 days, it's been great. We've had all this racing, but I'm pretty tired, and I've kind of cost myself a fair bit in the health department, etc. But we're going to fix that in the summer now that I can sleep a little bit. But yeah, that's a big ask from me. If you like the pod, it helps us a lot if you do that sort of thing. We're trying to get to 1,000 reviews, ratings, before Christmas or the end of the year. But anyway, Stage 18. Hippodromo de la Zarzuela to Madrid, 140 Ks. It's a procession. It's a flat sprint. There's an intermediate sprint, actually, with some bonus seconds with like 25 Ks to go. But that's about it, really. I picked Bennett yesterday. Benji picked Ackerman, I think. I should let you say anything, Benji. How do you feel now? It's the end of the season. How are you feeling as we come into this procession in Madrid?
Yeah, it's been a busy few months. I've terribly enjoyed it, and I think that we've got some stuff planned for the off season as well. If you've still got ideas, definitely post them in the YouTube comments, on Twitter using hashtag LRCP, or anywhere that we can find it. Maybe on Instagram. We've both got Instagram, and we are pretty accessible there. So if you want to throw it at us, we'll try and see if it can work throughout the off season. But again, want to thank you before we get started into this final stage. Thank you for all the support in the last few months. It's been a good ride. It's been a good ride, and we've got ambitious plans for the future, and we hope to bring that forward with you on our trip. So that's kind of the intro here. But yeah, we're going to talk about the stage. We're going to talk about Stage 18. I had Ackerman, you had Bennett. Bennett was looking better before this stage, knowing that he had a better Vuelta already. Ackerman was a bit on the side of not having had a real proper Grand Tour win this season, and he had one victory at Tirreno, I think, and a bit of a mediocre season compared to last year where he demolished the Giro. So he's had a season that is perhaps a bit less than he hoped for, but he was able to try and get that back today. And we'll see if that worked out, or if Bennett took it, or a random other person like Max Kanter, Jasper Philipsen. They've all got opportunities here. I think I saw Philipsen as third best sprinter here at the start line at the start of this Grand Tour, and it's still relatively the case. And I think that Philipsen and Ackerman were on a similar level before we got to these sprint stages. But usually I go over the breakaway in these stages, but knowing that it's a procession, that it's this typical final stage like you have in the Tour de France with the Champs-Élysées, now you've got it in Madrid. There was a lot of tension a few weeks ago whether this would work out with COVID and such, but having literally no COVID riders on the off days and on the rest days and throughout the whole Vuelta here, well, that means that they've been doing a pretty good job at ASO for this one. So congratulations to them as well. Thank you for organizing a race of this stature in the middle of an epidemic. And it's probably harder than any of us can imagine. So yeah, credits to them as well. But all in all, breakaway, who cares? Someone attacked, Wellens attacked for a bit. I think some other people did as well, but to be honest, nobody really cared in today's stage. They weren't going to make it anyway. We knew that was going to be a sprint. It's not like that year where Geise, was that here or was that Tour of Turkey? I think that was Tour of Turkey.
That was Tour of Turkey. It was Vinokurov. There's been a few last kilometre attacks in the Champs-Élysées. Vinokurov and the guy that won Milano San Remo, I think, did Schmil attack late? I don't know. There's been a few late attacks in Champs. It never happens. I hate the procession stages. Think about how exciting Giro ITT stage was, and then compare that to, I guess, what is basically racing for 5 kilometres. I mean, it's just not the best way to showcase the sport, in my view. You can do a procession, just make the right, let them do a lap afterwards, the guys that won as a team. I think that would actually be nicer, to be honest, than doing it in the stage. That's what I would do. But we saw Richard Carapaz was in the green jersey, even though he didn't win it. Roglic won it, and they were posting up. And I think they were, because this was Chris Froome's last race with Ineos or Skineos, so the end of an era there. He got awarded a Vuelta 2011 trophy, GC victory, got the trophy for that. So maybe they were posting up for that. Ineos rather than Carapaz second place. So they're doing that. Roglic posed with his team, obviously celebrating, then all the jerseys. Interestingly, Guillaume Martin wasn't able to ride without taking both hands off the bars. Maybe it's a learned skill. Roglic has been winning a lot of races where he can do that. What else happened? Nothing. It was just, I hate these stages. They're just, and a lot of other people do too. It just can't be a good one. You want to end on a good note, can't imagine anything else in any other sport like this. Maybe
how about a finish on Alpe d'Huez in the Tour?
In the world. I mean, you don't have to go that far. Just to any form of competitive cycling race where there could be a GC gap would do the fit very nicely for me. But it was, I think I picked Bennett maybe because I was being lazy, and Benji went with Ackermann. Benji says he went to just be contrarian, but I don't believe him. I think he was actually thinking that maybe Ackermann was a lot more motivated than Bennett and would be, given what Benji just described, with no major wins apart from Tirreno. And also Bennett looked really rough in the mountains in the last few days, looked very tired. Not criticising him, justified. He was in the Tour fighting all Tour for green, not just... So Caleb Ewan was just fighting the time cut. Bennett was fighting for green. That's even more energy, which he won. And now it comes to the Vuelta. Whereas Ackermann he got in that breakaway, right, Benji, in the mountain stage. Did that feed into your thinking, the fact that Ackermann, he must have felt okay to get in, even though it was a joke, to get in that mountain stage break?
Well, true, but it didn't really influence my my pick of Ackermann yesterday. I think yesterday I just wanted to be a bit contrarian, like you said. I got to be honest, I won't take full credit in any rider that I say like that in a way where I'm just contrarian towards somebody. So if Ackermann would win the stage, I don't want to take full credit for that for sure. But you're right. There's damn it. Anyway, let's talk about the rest of the race here. We had an interesting situation that I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to the intermediate sprint because looking at GC, we had top 10, Valverde being 10th with 9 minutes 34 behind Roglic. And then the 11th spot, Vlasov, was 9 minutes 36 behind Roglic. I was like, yeah, this is going to be that. We saw a few years ago that Chris Froome was sprinting on the Madrid stage to try and secure a green jersey compared to a sprinter. I thought Vlasov is going to try and attack and take that intermediate sprint. But some people pointed out to me that he actually tried something, but I didn't see it. I generally gloze over it. And yeah, did you see anything from Vlasov? Because I just saw Gruzhev.
I just saw the Gruzhev guy getting in the breakaway, the other Astana rider. I didn't really see too much from Vlasov.
Anyway, I would have loved to see that happen, but I guess no. But yeah, that was the only thing that really happened throughout the stage where I was hoping for something to happen outside of the last few kilometers. I was secretly still rooting for my preview pick as well, because before the Vuelta started, I had Aberasturi on the stage, but he's been pretty trash all over throughout this Vuelta, although I still respect him a lot. He's in my heart, Jon Aberasturi. But yeah, for the rest of the stage, I guess we can basically start talking about the sprint because not too much happened overall. We have a lead up to the sprint where there's a group with 3 riders or so left at the front with 10 seconds of a gap at about 11, 12 kilometers to go. And what we notice is just directly at 10K to go, directly at 10K, it was like on the spot 10K. We see the whole team of the Koenig Quickstep at the front of the peloton in one train. And we see a bit of a pattern. First, the entire train of Quickstep, then the entire train of Bora Hansgrohe for Ackermann, and then the entire train for UAE with Philipsen, and then some riders sprinkled around and not necessarily a full team for any other rider. So clearly all those teams trying to put it all on the line for their sprinter. And I was thinking, what if we just have 3 sprint trains going into that final corner? That's going to be chaos. So luckily some stuff happened after that, causing, well, first of all, the first 2 riders of the Koenig to go out front, Cataneo and so forth. But Cavagna, again, one hell of a ride. And I want to give a bit of a note on Cavagna. He won the most combative of La Vuelta. And I guess that's somewhat deserving. I'm having to think back about all the stages, but I remember him being in the break a lot. I remember naming him a lot in the breakaway stages. He hadn't achieved much, and I think that's why they gave him this prize, because Wellens was in a similar amount of breakaways, got 2 stage wins. Martin was in a similar amount of breakaways, got the KOM jersey. And Cavagna was in the breakaway a lot, but didn't get anything out of it. So perhaps that's the reason that they give it to them. You feel like it's a good thing to give someone a prize because he didn't win anything else?
No, I don't really mind. I think Cavagna deserves it, to be honest. I don't have an issue with it. He was pretty active. He could have won a few stages if things had gone differently, if anyone else hadn't chased him on one of the stages. So yeah, I got no major issues with it. But what I noticed was in this last, they caught the break, as they were going to. And the sprint trains have assembled, and you see Bora on the front, and De Koenig just disappear with 3Ks to go, or 2.5Ks to go. And this is not a cause for alarm. We see this all the time with Quickstep. They go to the... And this is why Bennett and Murku and Quickstep, it's ludicrous them complaining about Leipzig the other day when they're like, well, this is, how dare you barge in? It's like, well, their strategy in all these sprints is with 3Ks to go, 3 to 4, they will drift back to 10 to 15 riders deep, sometimes even deeper. They'll drift back there and keep Bennett in a better sit than right at the front. And then with 1,500 or 1,200 to go, they will surge up to the front. They'll burn a rider to come up to the front, and then they will just slot right in to the best sprinter's wheel and on his lead out, or wherever another better sit is. And whoever's on that wheel, they better be giving it up. That's exactly what happened to Leipzig. And it happened again today. That's their strategy. I don't know who it was that yielded the wheel, but they ended up on Ackermann's wheel. But I saw at 7:50 to go, when normally you'd see 2 riders, probably Stibar, then Murku, launching Bennett. I saw Murku pull out at 7:50. He just said, nah. And maybe he was the one that brought Bennett up there, or brought Bennett and Stibar up there. So maybe that's why he was done and couldn't do any more, was tired, etc. And then Stibar, I think it was too, couldn't really pull for Bennett at all. I don't really see him do any lead out for Bennett after that point. So Bennett was kind of having to fight for his own wheel. He's a little bit off the wheel, wasn't right slotted in on Ackermann, even though the wheel was there to be had. Canter and Philipsen were on the left-hand side of Ackermann. They turn in a slight left bend, and they open it up. Well, Ackermann does early. You know he's going to open up early. That's just what he does. With 200 to go, maybe. He's got Bennett pretty much on the wheel, but Bennett had been waving his... I don't know, Bennett kind of was waving his front wheel all over the place. Not in like a dangerous way. I more mean in an inefficient way. He got it on the right-hand side of Ackermann and then had to soft pedal and slow down a fair bit. Lost a bit of momentum as Ackermann kicked, I think, because he had his wheel in the wrong spot. Like, Bennett normally, I think 9 times out of 10 would be winning this sprint. Or if you said to Quickstep, hey, going into the last 200, you got Sam on Ackermann's wheel, clear road ahead, Ackermann's going to kick at 225, Sam's should have a perfect sit on him. They'd be like, thank you very much for that. We'll be taking those odds. And that happened, except Ackerman was too strong today. He's obviously recovered pretty well from the previous stages. It was clearly going to be between those two. Cantor and Philipsen were kind of fighting it out on the other side of the road, getting in each other's way. Ackerman twitches to the left. I have no issue with it at all. I don't even think it's barely worth mentioning it, but I wasn't going to mention it, but it did definitely cause Bennett to then move left quite a way when Ackerman kind of twitched as if he was going to the left a little bit. Nothing out of the ordinary what Ackerman did, but the reaction from Bennett meant that he had to go just a little bit further to the line, maybe slowed down a little bit. And we're talking inches here, and that's how much Ackerman won by. We had to wait for the photo finish. He won by maybe 2-3 inches, and I think that might have made a little bit of a difference. But congrats to Pascal Ackerman. Been a rough, I think, Vuelta for him, and he's saved it for Bora Hansgrohe in the last stage. Anything else interesting you saw in this sprint, Benji?
I'd love to talk about what Philipsen was doing on the line, like a good 20 meters before the line, 30 meters before the line. He started sprinting and he had a bit of a gap on Cantor. He's riding a good 3 meters off the left barrier, and Cantor is going on his left and passing him on his left. And it's not necessarily it's kind of a deviation, but I don't think it's on purpose. It's some super weird stuff. So you've got the road that is also becoming wider a bit, and the left barrier is getting wider and wider. So for Philipsen and Cantor, I think they both were following a different line depending on that. And Cantor was sprinting straight compared to the road that it was initially. And Philipsen kind of looked like he was sprinting a bit not straight, but I think it's more because he was focusing on the left barrier as his indication, and that left barrier was going more to the left and more to the left. So I think that caused Philipsen and Cantor to ride towards each other, but mainly on the occasion of Philipsen for me. And he almost crashed both him and Cantor with a good 20 meters to go. So I'm glad that did not happen on the line here. That would have been horrible. But it's a bit of a weird thing. It's like even 20 meters before the line, when they were already touching each other, it looked like Philipsen was trying to avoid the eye in Cofidis on the sponsor thing that is just before the line. You've got these words on the road as a sponsor, and he just rode around the eye of that Cofidis sponsor. Super weird behavior, but I just can't place why he did it. But it's also not really on purpose, so I can't really say it's a deviation or anything. It's just a bit of
It's like Sagan and Kwiatkowski, right, at Milano Sanremo. It's kind of in that basket.
It's like an unbalanced bike throw, like you say, and maybe perhaps someone has to say to Philipsen that a horizontal bike throw won't help too much, but yeah, all in all, not that big of a deal. A proper final stage, Ackerman winning in the end, probably good for his mental state. He's going to be much more happy with this Vuelta having one victory in the bag, and I think that Bora is going to be more happy about him as well. So for future seasons, looking forward to see him with the top sprinters once again. That perhaps he was a tiny bit under this year, and I hope that he can come back to fight with the best properly on next season. But he did today as well, so yeah, I'm happy with Ackerman winning.
Yes. Mark that down for an off-season podcast. Best sprinters in the world, our rankings. I got a lot to say, particularly about today, because the De Koning Quickstep train effect is real. Sam Bennett getting a lead out from Merku and Co. That has a big effect. We saw he didn't get that Merku lead out today, and he wasn't able to win against Ackerman, who's definitely not up there with Ewan and Demar. So, yeah, that factors into my thinking about ranking the best sprinters, but I'll hold my thoughts a little bit there. You can perhaps see where I'm going with that. We'll move on to stage 3, the last stage of the Ceratizit Challenge by La Vuelta. Madrid to Madrid, 98.6 Ks, a rolly parkour with just like a slight uphill incline. They do like 15 laps in Madrid. And the GC situation was more interesting than I first described yesterday, because I didn't realize there were so many bonus seconds, because there's about 10 intermediate sprints on this stage. Brennauer, the German, is in first, 10 seconds ahead of Longo Borghini and 13 seconds ahead of Van Dijk, and 17 seconds ahead of Annemiek van Vleuten, and 18 seconds ahead of Lorena Wiebes. Sarah Roy was 27 seconds back, but Van Vleuten said, I think she's leaving Michelin Scott, right, Benji? she said they were riding for Sarah Roy, even though she was 9 seconds behind Van Vleuten in GC. And Roy did a pretty good TT yesterday, but obviously a better sprinter than Van Vleuten. So pretty magnanimous from Annemiek van Vleuten. I mean, it's not probably the biggest race of her career, and she might not be in the best form at the moment. But yeah, she was riding for Sarah Roy today. We saw her on the front a fair bit. But those intermediate sprints were going to be pivotal. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 intermediate sprints, each with a fair few, like I think 4 bonus seconds, maybe more. And it was confusing because the Tissot timing was taking them at every lap, and it wasn't supposed to be like that. Also, another rider moving. I think Lucy van der Haar is retiring after this race for High Tech Products. She was dual junior world champion on the road. She's only like 25 or 26. Maybe we'll talk about that in another off-season podcast as the state of women's cycling and financial aspects, etc. I know an article has been published by, I think, the Cyclist Alliance about financial pressures being a reason for women retiring early from the sport. Seems that and other things for Van der Haar, who maybe hasn't fulfilled the potential we thought she had, based on those junior results. So this was her last stage. Wish her well in the future. And yeah, it was Lorena Wiebes basically taking all these intermediate sprints whenever they came around, but then she had to respond to an attack from Elisa Longo Borghini. Now, I've only been able to watch like snippets of this as the 5-second sort of videos are posted on Twitter because I haven't been able to watch any live coverage. Lisa Brennauer was also trying to contest those sprints. But then I think Elisa Longo Borghini got a fair gap. She broke away from the other riders as I thought she would. I think yesterday I might have picked her or Lorena Wiebes to the stage. Longo Borghini attacked. She needed to make up a fair few seconds on GC. She got a 20-second gap, but then eventually got reeled in by the sprinters teams. And yeah, it was a head-to-head sprint between Consoni, Chiara Consoni, Zanardi, Clarici, Lisa Brennauer, trying to stay up there as much as possible, even though she's more of a time trialist. Jelena Eric, Bastianelli, Elisa Balsamo, 22-year-old sprinter for Valcar. She'll be going to a bigger team soon. And Lorena Wiebes. But I think Lorena Wiebes just went way too early. She was way overconfident in this sprint. She was not drafting beforehand, before she opened up her sprint properly, didn't even seem to bother to do that. Opened it up, allowed Balsamo, who was getting a lead out from, I think, Chiara Consoni, her Valcar teammate. And yeah, she just went in front of Balsamo and started sprinting. Balsamo, by the way, who came second on stage 1, slots onto Lorena Wiebes' wheel and beats her on the line. Very close finish as well, taking the stage today in Madrid. I think that is, I'd say the biggest win of her career. I know she won stage at Amgen Tour of California, but this, to me, I think probably the biggest win of her career, given the status on paper of this race. But she's been, I think, in the Italian Olympic team with Paternoster, etc., or at least the track world championships team. I saw she was in Brisbane last year, the Animes Velodrome, for the track championships. But yeah, Lorena Wiebes, I think, wouldn't have won GC even if she had won, because of where Brennauer and Borghini, how they'd done with the bonus seconds throughout the stage. Brennauer takes the overall 12 seconds ahead of Elisa Longo Borghini and 13 seconds ahead of Lorena Wiebes and 31 seconds ahead of fourth Ellen van Dijk. Van Vleuten actually still finishes 2 seconds ahead of Sarah Roy, who missed out on the sprint today. She was 12th, so that didn't really work out for Mitchelton Scott. But yeah, pretty interesting race in terms of the way they've designed it, despite not the most exciting parkour. It's kind of like women's Bink Bank, the way I saw this race, to be honest. Maybe they could, I think you can't have the same exact parkour as women's Bink Bank, otherwise you get maybe just Van Vleuten or Van der Breggen winning every time, every race, and I'm not sure that's exactly the optimal thing. I think it's good to have a race like this where there was a really good balance between the sprinters, the sprinters, Wiebes, and Balsamo. Well, you got Balsamo, who did not so really bad in the TT, I think. And so I don't know how she finished so far back in the TT, and it seems only to have the final punch. So she's like not really there on GC. But then you got the sprinters who are kind of good in, did an okay TT, and then can fight for the intermediate sprints. Lorena Wiebes, got her up there, and then you got the TT specialist, Brennauer, Ellen van Dijk. Ellen van Dijk's won this race, I think, before, or come second or third as well. TT specialist right up there. And then you've also got just the straight up all-rounders, Lisa Longo-Borghini, Annemiek van Vleuten as well. And Liana Lippert, I'm kind of surprised that she's finished so far back on GC. Maybe she didn't have the best TT yesterday. She lost 35 seconds. So, yeah, I think it's a really interesting, balanced race, and I'm keen to see if they can promote it more next year. We're going to try and do our best with that. I think having it on at the same day, the same time as the Vuelta, or same with the Giro Rosa, it was always on at the same time as the Tour, which makes it very, very difficult with everyone's got limited bandwidth in terms of like journalists or whoever covering things, and it just makes it very, very difficult. Whereas if it's the only show in town, like the Tour Down Under, it's the only show in town, that got more plays on the GCN Racing YouTube videos, highlight videos, than their Paris-Nice videos. So just goes to show. But anyway, congrats to Elisa Balsamo. She is one to watch, 22-year-old Italian sprinter for next year especially. Lorena Wiebes, still the best overall female sprinter in the world. And a great win for Lisa Brennauer. I think she's won this race, back-to-back years. So just like Roglic defended his title in the men's Vuelta, back-to-back, Brennauer wins this back-to-back. And she's just keeping on, just still winning loads of races, still really competitive. Brennauer in the Classics, fourth in Flanders, third in Gent-Wevelgem, second in Drie Daagse Brugge de Pan, and top 10 world champs ITT. Yeah, just really, really consistent season from her, but this is probably the best overall result, and she'll be very happy with this. Also taking the ITT stage. That's all I've really got to say. Is there any other news, Benji, before we sign off? Try and keep it under 30 minutes today. Anything else we missed from the Vuelta? Anything we got? We've got the recap show coming up.
Yeah, indeed. We've got a recap show coming up in the coming days. Probably going to be in like 2-3 days, 4 days, somewhere around that area. But I'd love to highlight an achievement of the podcast and of yourself. I don't know if I actually said it on the podcast that your nickname made it worldwide already. Or did I say that yesterday as well? I forgot.
I can't remember.
It's on Wikipedia as well now, so I don't know how that happened, but in a week time, El Jaguar, the Tulican, is becoming a mainstream thing already.
Yeah, I can't believe it's on Wikipedia. I mean, it is a better nickname, so I'm not surprised it's taken off. Obviously, if you want to check out my video on the Vuelta Stage 17, the last real stage of this Vuelta, you can go and check that out at ITV Sport. Have you got anything else on Benji that people should go and check out? Anything you got in the pipeline?
Nothing to announce yet. That's
okay.
What I'd go about.
That's all from us today. Vuelta Stage 18 recap. We'll go through who won all the jerseys, all the time splits, etc. in our recap podcast, either tomorrow or the day after. Ceratizit, I still can't remember if it's Thera or Ceratizit. The Madrid Challenge race in Madrid, won by Lisa Brennauer. This has been an absolute marathon, but a pleasure nonetheless. Thank you so much for joining us on this epic journey throughout the crazy 2020 season. I can't believe all the races that have happened. Thank you to all the race organisers and the riders in particular for just performing at an incredible level and making it possible, as well as Lacole, our show partner, for making this podcast possible and bringing it to your ears. But that's all from us today. We'll see you tomorrow or the next day. Hope you're well. Ciao.